It's Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and you most likely clicked on this video because maybe you're thinking of applying to a bakery, or maybe you are a bakery boss yourself and you want to kind of see what type of questions are of the norm to ask. Now, if you are new to my channel, normally I post baking tutorials and I also give a little bit of YouTube advice sometimes, and I also talk about my at-home baking business and how I made it successful. I am no longer an at-home baker. I'm just doing the YouTube life and making fun baked goods for different people and making you guys tutorials. So I have experience both working as an at-home baker and as a baker in a commercial bakery. Now, primarily I was a cake decorator. I also did cupcakes, but I also provided other sweet treats such as macarons and sugar cookies to the bakery. And I talk about that in a different video. So you can go ahead and click that right after you're done watching this video. Now, full disclosure, I have never been a bakery boss or a boss really. I've run my own companies, but I have not really run my own staff or anything like that. However, I have done several interviews over my lifetime working, both in baking and in other facets of my life, and I've had the opportunity to talk to my bosses afterwards and after successful interviews and ask them, what was it about my particular interview that appealed to you? And in doing so over the years, I've really learned what employers are looking for. I've also gotten to see firsthand what really works in a bakery setting and what doesn't. I'm going to be helping you answer the 5 questions that your interviewer is most likely going to ask you. So let's get into it. Question number 1, the most important thing that they are going to ask you during your interview is going to be about your skills. Now, chances are when you sent in a resume, you included pictures of your work and you talked about some of the skills. You might have said something like you're a novice level piper, you know how to work with fondant, etc., etc. If you've seen my videos before, then you know that you can take an amazing photo of something when maybe that product wasn't really that amazing. So it is super important that you're honest and upfront when you answer questions about your skill. A lot of times on resumes, we're told to embellish the truth a little bit or really just kind of highlight what you do. And that is completely fine, especially if you're talking about something else that maybe won't really come to light. But this is one of those things that is definitely going to come to light. It is going to become very obvious if you say, for example, that you are an expert at cake structures, and then when it comes down to it, you're not able to do it as excellently as you may have built it up. So it's super, super important that you're honest and upfront. When I applied for my first bakery job, I had really only done 5 cakes in my life. Now, I didn't really say, I've only done 5 cakes in my life, but I talked up the things that I was good at, but I also made it super clear what my weaknesses were. For example, I didn't really know how to work with fondant that well. So I did say I haven't worked with fondant a lot, but I am looking to learn how to do that. You want to show your potential employer that you are someone that can learn to do something. Very, very important. Now, let's say you are super proficient in everything and you feel that you are super, super confident in all of the skills that this bakery is looking for. That's fantastic and that's great. But it's really important that you don't come off as someone that has no room left to learn. Being humble is a really, really good trait, especially because when it comes to something like cake decorating, something that you might like might not be up to the standards of something that your boss might like. And I really shouldn't use the words up to the standard of, I should really more talk about this in a lateral way. And the reason that I say that is because people's cake styles differ and what somebody likes is going to be different from what somebody else likes. But nobody's is better or worse, if that makes sense. But what I would say is that I'm totally open to learning and diversifying my skills so that it better fits in with whatever your bakery is doing with their cakes. Everybody likes to have a little bit of a spin on their cakes. For example, when I started working at my friend's bakery after I had already worked at the same bakery but under different ownership, she wanted us all to ice our cupcakes differently than what we had been doing before. And although I was very, very proficient at piping already, it took me quite a few tries to get it right. And when she told me that it was wrong, I said, okay, I will do it again. No problem. You have to understand that yes, there is pride in what we do, but when you're working for somebody, you do have to adhere to whatever their rules are. So being able to take criticism well is a huge, huge plus for your employer. You're most likely going to be asked why you applied for the job or what made you interested in becoming a cake decorator. And of course, we all have our stock answer of, oh, I watched Cake Boss when I was a little girl, and now I am making cakes because that's what I became interested in after watching that. That's a great answer, but what your employer is really looking for is they're looking to hear that you are passionate about it. You're not just doing it for the money, you are doing it because you love it. And what really helped propel my career forward once I was already working at the bakery was showing my boss that I make a plethora of things outside of what I do at the shop because I love it that much. So really talk up how you will just go and whip up a batch of brownies because you haven't baked in a while. What they want to see is that raw passion. If you're only baking for business or to make money and you just only talk about maybe running your own baking business at home, that's not necessarily a bad thing because it shows that you have great work ethic, but having that passion is what's going to keep you employed there and what's going to keep you wanting to work there. Another thing that you're probably going to be asked is, what are your goals in working for this company? So this one can be a little bit sticky because sometimes maybe you're just wanting to supplement your income because you run an at-home baking business and you're using this to help supplement your income. I actually think it is okay to say this. I don't think that you have to cover that up or hide that. However, I do think that you need to kind of sandwich what you say. If you don't know what I mean by sandwich what you say, it kind of means that you put one like negative thing or something that maybe isn't so great in between two really, really great things. The negative in this instance would be that you are kind of wanting just to supplement your income and you're running your own thing at home. Now, that's not really a negative. What it is it's not really a positive, is what I'm saying. So I would sandwich that by saying, yes, I run my own baking business at home. This is something that you should be very, very honest about. However, I don't have a huge customer base, and so I'm looking to supplement my income by working at a commercial bakery. On top of that, I am also looking to raise my skill level and to improve my skills and really learn what it's like to be in an actual bakery. So right there, what you're doing is you're being honest, you're being upfront. So you will never ever have to hide that. I did a whole video on that if you want to go and check that out. And then the next thing that you're doing is you're saying you want to work for this company because you can see that it's a great learning environment. You can see that the staff is happy and that it's a great place to learn and make your skills better and in turn do better for their company. You will inevitably be asked this question: tell me more about yourself, or tell me anything that we haven't gone over already. So if you manage to cover everything and all of the other questions, fantastic. But if not, make sure that you drive this point home, that you are passionate about what you do and that you are open to critique and criticism and that you are willing to do whatever it takes to continue to learn how they do things at their shop. And you also want to make sure that you emphasize that you are flexible, organized, and clean. Those things are really, really important when working at a bakery. You also want to emphasize that you are really punctual. Maybe you're not quite there yet, work on that, because as an employer, what they're looking for is that you are never leaving them high and dry. Above all else, if you can do amazing things with cake, it really doesn't matter if you're not on time for your job. So it's really important that you emphasize those small little things throughout your interview, or when they give you that final question, you're able to speak to that more. And finally, a lot of people, especially people that are maybe new to the working world, feel like they can't ask questions themselves. And you can, and you should. You should be really, really clear about what you are open to doing. So one of the things that I know that is really hard for employers is that they have to come up with work hours, and your work hours that work both for them and for you. And cake decorators often get weird work hours where everything is piled onto the weekend and then you get a lot less throughout the week. So you really have to think about what work hours are going to work for you, and you need to be upfront about that. You also need to expect that you probably won't be working full time unless you're working for a super successful bakery. But even the most successful bakeries do try to cut down on the amount of staff that they pay. So chances of being a full-time worker are low because usually they only have 1 or 2 of those. But just be really clear, if you eventually want full-time work, you need to make that obvious right away in your interview and say that you are looking towards having full-time hours. Is that a possibility? You also need to be clear that if you have childcare issues or anything of the like, that you're not going to be able to be on call, for example. So all of these things are really important to get out of the way straight away in the interview. This is just really fair to your employer. It also shows that you're very organized and forward thinking. And here are some final tips for your interview. When you walk into that interview, you need to be confident. If you're not speaking clearly and concisely, that is a bit of an issue. It doesn't mean that you're not a good cake decorator, and it doesn't even mean that you're not a good employee, but it's those first impressions that really do matter. Unfortunately, we live in a society where we don't have time for 2-hour interviews for us to get to know you and for you to warm up. So it's really important that you practice in the mirror what it's like to give concise and clear answers. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, but I think I've done well over 50 interviews, a lot of them for teaching, and I often practice by talking to myself in the car as I'm driving. And it really has helped my interview skills. I'm often told during interviews that I am very clear, that I have well thought out answers, and that is mostly because I think about the questions that they're potentially going to ask me before I go into that interview. So it's so important that you're in the right headspace before you walk into an interview situation. And this is kind of good advice that's going to work for you across any interview that you do, not just for baking interviews. The other thing is you need to be friendly. They're looking for somebody that is personable. Generally, cake decorators don't really interact with the public that much. However, if your bakery runs in such a way where they need you to be upfront as well as decorating, they're looking for somebody that has a knack for customer service. Even if you've never worked in the customer service industry, someone that is friendly and patient is going to go a long way. And this isn't necessarily something that you need to say out loud. You don't need to tell them, I'm a very friendly and patient person. They'll be able to pick up on that as you're speaking to them. So being very genuine throughout your interview is also really important. You want to speak highly of yourself, but you also need to do that in a humble way. That can be really difficult, especially when you're nervous. It's really easy to kind of brag about yourself and not realizing that you're doing it in a way that might be off-putting. But you also don't want to come off as incapable of doing the things that you are very capable of. Now, let's say that you aren't very confident in your cake skills. That's fine. Just emphasize the fact that you are willing to learn and that you are great at learning and picking things up quickly. They're probably also going to talk to you about the pacing of their bakery and what is expected of their workers. Now, if there is something that is glaringly not going to work for you, then you want to continue on that interview as cordially as possible, but also be very honest and say, I don't know if that particular aspect is going to work for me. Sometimes employers will love everything else that you talked about, that you've shown, that they will make allowances for those particular things. Finding a really good decorator is actually really challenging. So it's not like you're competing against a whole pool of people. So be comforted by that fact that your skill is special and it is hard to find great decorators. Now keep this last thing in mind, you're not going to be making a ton of money as a decorator. Like I've said before, being a decorator at a commercial bakery is awesome because it can help supplement that income. If you are thinking about applying to a commercial bakery, keep these things in mind. You can either work at a commercial bakery that's more like a mom and pop shop that's run by one person or a couple. Those are great because I really find that you have a very family environment feel and everybody really has each other's backs at those type of companies. It's awesome, it's great. There's a little bit more sacrifice to it, but at great ones, you feel like you're taken care of and thought of as well. The other side is that you can work for a corporation. Now, I know this sounds a little bit weird. I love working for corporations. When I worked at different companies, it was great. You got a whole bunch of different benefits that you really can't get at shops that are run by a family. And there's also very particular protocols. So there's a lot of things that your employer cannot ask you to do because it goes maybe against the franchise's rules. And I personally really love that. I really needed to run my life on a particular typed schedule. And luckily, when I was working at a smaller bakery, they were able to make things work for me. But I also didn't really need that job. I was working at that job for fun. If you are looking to work at a job so that you can get lots of hours, so that you can maybe move up in the company, then obviously you're probably going to want to go for more something that is franchise based because there are going to be more things that they can offer you. Of course, you might not get that family feel you're looking for. So I hope those tips help you, and if you are going into a baking interview, I wish you the best of luck. But really all you need to do is be friendly, confident, be yourself, and be really honest about your skill level and what you're looking for in a job. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!